Because even a contemporary romance author, a cozy mystery writer, these folks need the story Bible too. Sandy Says Read, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do something a little different. Today at this book channel, we're going to talk about writing books. One specific thing that we're going to talk about today is the story Bible, the importance of having a story Bible, what goes into it, all that good stuff. I know that as a fantasy author, the story Bible is of utmost importance to me. Genre fiction writers typically need to have a story Bible, but it is also important for your contemporary romance authors, your cozy mystery writers. Everybody needs to have your story Bible when you're writing a story, especially if you're going to write in a series. Oh, it's so important if you're going to write in a series. You guys, before we get started, let's do a little bit of housekeeping, just a little bit of housekeeping. Get us going here. I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Invite your friends to subscribe to the channel too, because here at Sandy Says Read, we typically are talking about books, all the things to do with books. We do book reviews here on the channel. We do booktube tags. And like today, sometimes we talk about the writing and the crafting of the books. If that is exciting to you, this is the channel for you. All right. What else? Oh, yes, there should be a little ticker going across your screen about my newsletter. The Sandy Says Read newsletter goes out once a month on the first of the month. I do not spam people. In the newsletter, we'll have bookish related stuff and some news about my own books. And there's a column by a dragon in there. So yeah, it's fun, exciting, and great. That's it. I will also put a link to that in the drop-down box below to make it easy for you all. That's it. I think that's all of the commercial stuff I need to do. We can dive into the story Bible and all of its important stuff. Okay, in today's video on the story Bible, we are going to discuss why you want a story Bible, the types or styles or methods of creating and making your story Bible. Number 3, how to use your story Bible, both now and in the future. And number 4, the most exciting part of this video, what goes in the story Bible. This is going to be number 4. That's going to be the most fun part. Okay. Oh, let's see what else is on my notes here. You guys, I've got tons of notes for this to kind of help keep us on track. If you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know I require notes to keep us from going nuts. Okay, first of all, you guys, yes, the most important thing you're going to put in your story Bible is going to be your characters, right? Just to keep yourself on track with your characters. But it is so much more than the characters. Your story Bible is so much more than your characters. I'll define it for you in a minute here, but I want to, let's see. I want to make it clear that we're building the foundation for your story in your story Bible. If you think of the story Bible as the map or the tome or the guidebook, the Wikipedia that is going to keep you from getting lost when you're writing, when you're working on the main story, or when you're working on a novella that goes alongside your story, when you're working on a short story or a set of short stories that are in the world or in the realm of your main story, you want to have your own Wikipedia, your own personal Wikipedia for your world that you can go to, and you can look something up and have easy access to the answers. Okay? Think of your story Bible that way. It is your easy access to your answers. It is the shortcut that's going to make your life easier, better, faster, wonderful. Okay, I mentioned that even like a contemporary romance author will want to have a story Bible. I mean, let's say you have so you're writing a duology, okay, two books. You would think you can keep track of all the elements that go into just 2 books. And yes, maybe you can. But let's stop and think about it. You've got a real world setting. It's contemporary romance, real world setting. You might not think, oh, I need a story Bible that keeps track of these real world elements. It's the real world. But stop and think about that. Okay, what did you name your coffee shop where your characters meet? What did you name the ranch where your characters go for a holiday? What did you name the street where your character grew up and, has memories? Okay, you want to have the answers to those questions easily available to you. And you can have those answers easily available to you if you write them down, if you type them into a document, into a tome that you call your story Bible. All right. I've written down here, even if it's in the real world, you want to know what you named the coffee shop. You want to know, how old is your main character's BFF? All right. Do you know that? If you know that, write it down. When you write down the character description for your main character's BFF, write down how old they are, write down what color hair they have, write down their favorite ice cream flavor. Okay, write these things down so you know these things. So as you're working on the story and you get to chapter 17 and you think, wait a minute, was Bob 17 or 18 years old when such and such thing happened? It's in your story Bible. You've got it there where you can look it up, easy, quick, fast, and you can get back to writing, okay? A lot of the tips and things I'm going to talk about are supposed to get you back to writing, all right? Let's begin with why you want a story Bible. I've already mentioned one of the things that we're going to be focused on throughout this presentation is making life easier for yourself, making it easier so you can get back to writing. So many authors find themselves, if they get derailed, then they're derailed for a while into writer's block. And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're inviting writer's block, where you're inviting interruptions. You want to be able to make it easy, quick, to find your answer, get back into writing. Okay. One of the big, fat, obvious reasons for having a story Bible is the little inconsistencies or little problems, little mistakes that you leave in a manuscript, or little inconsistencies that you accidentally put into a story. The readers are going to notice those. The readers are going to be confused by those, or those are going to take the reader out of the story. And the last thing you want to do is to take your reader out of the story. Let's give an example. Let's say your readers are used to the character Bob having a car that is, I don't know, a Lincoln Town car. And all of a sudden, the car that Bob drives, you call something else. You call it an Escort. The reader is going to notice, hey, this car just changed. Why did the car just change? Did he get a new car? Or did he get someone else's car? Is he renting this car? The reader is going to start to wonder why the car is different. Instead of paying attention to the story, the reader is going to be worried about, why is the car different? Instead of, where are they going in the car, or who is in the car with Bob? All of a sudden, the reader is focused on the wrong thing. The reader's out of the story. That kind of inconsistency you don't need. You don't have to have that kind of inconsistency if you know in your story Bible that Bob drives a Lincoln Town car. Bob drives a blue Lincoln Town car. Okay, you've got that information in your story Bible. So when you're writing, you can look it up. Or when you're writing and you think, wait a minute, wasn't he driving a Lincoln Town car before? You can look it up. There it is, and you know. Or you provide that to your editor, and your editor can check and make sure, yeah, it's a Lincoln Town car every time that it's referenced. Okay, right. Another reason that you want a story Bible, it's so much easier to look up those little details and those little pieces of information in a story Bible, in a document like that, than it used to be. In fact, I'm ancient, right? Used to be, I had to reread whole swaths of text to find something I was looking for. Also, nowadays, what we can do is just do a word search in your document. But even that takes some time. Even that takes you out of writing mode, takes you out of storytelling mode as an author to stop and think, okay, I need to do a word search in this document to find out what kind of car Bob was driving in, I think he was in chapter 2. Okay, so you go back through and you do a word search for the car and you think it was an escort. So you're looking up the word escort. Well, what if you've got the word escort for someone escorted Cecilia into a room? So you're doing a word search through your document to try to find the type of car that Bob was driving. Oh, what a nightmare. So you're focused on, okay, what keywords should I use for this word search? How can I find the type of car that Bob was driving? Your brain is no longer writing the story. Your brain is now trying to figure out what kind of car Bob was driving. You don't need to be doing that when you're writing your book. You need to be writing your book. You need to be telling your story, okay? But if you've got a story Bible and it is driving you nuts that you don't know what type of car Bob was driving, you can look in your story Bible. There it is. He's driving a blue Lincoln Navigator town car. You see, you need the story Bible. You look it up. There it is. It's in your story Bible. You type it in and you keep going, telling the story, not just what he's driving, but he's in it, who he's with, and what they're doing. You can just keep telling your story. Okay, you don't get hijacked by the details if you've got them in your story Bible and you can look them up. Back in the day, I had to reread whole swaths of the story to find what I was looking for, to get that detail right so that my brain could keep writing stories. It's the way I'm wired. All right. Another reason why you want a story Bible is to just go more in depth with your character development and with your world building. For a fantasy author like myself, I have found that when I'm working on the story Bible, when I'm adding details and elements to it, my world building is just increasing. It's just going deeper. There's more happening in the world building when I can dive into the story Bible and add some details. There's just more happening. And usually that's happening because I'm working on some short stories. I'm working on novellas that take place in this world that's already been created for my main series plural. Okay. So to review, the reason why you have a story Bible, the reason why you want to have a story Bible is to get those little inconsistencies out. You want everything to be consistent. You want things to be correct. And you want to make it easier. Like if you have an editor, you want to make it easier for that editor to make things correct too. Because you can hand this story Bible to them and they will be able to make sure that, yeah, you've got everything right. You've got everything consistent. You're on the right timeline. I mean, if you're writing a series, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like a trilogy where everything lines up, book 1, book 2, book 3. But if you've got a series where you've got an inspector, let's say, and you have a character who died of pneumonia in book 2, well, you can't have him show up at a picnic in book 7. Okay. Your editor is going to be able to follow that. You've got it in your story Bible. You mentioned, okay, Jim died in book 2 of pneumonia. You put that in the story Bible. In Jim's character description, spell out, his physical attributes, spell out, his favorite ice cream flavor, and spell out he died of pneumonia at such and such hospital on such and such date. Okay. So this happened. And your editor will know this happened. For the second part of our presentation, I want to talk about some of the types or styles of style books and story Bibles that you might employ. Some of the methods you might use to build a story Bible for yourself. I'm going to show you mine. This is very low tech. It's just a 3-ring binder where I have printed out the pages of my story Bible. I actually call it the Style Guide and Story Bible for Choices series. Okay, that's what I named it. You'll see what I did is I just taped to the front of it a postcard that is the front cover of the original front cover of the Choices Meant for Kings book. When book 2 was released, this is what it originally looked like in 2009. Not what it looks like anymore. The re-release doesn't look that way. But this has been a long time building. I've been putting this story Bible, this thing together for a long, long time. I've been living in this fantasy world for a while. Okay, so what I have done is I've got a file on my computer where I just input the information. I can do a word search in there when I need to, but I know this world so well that I I pretty much know where to go in the file to find things. And I have made tabs in here too. I'll show you the tabs. Look, guys, this is so low tech. It's literally a piece of paper. Okay, you see that little tab right there? And there's another one right there. Okay, so low tech. I'm telling you, you can build your story Bible however it works for you. How does your brain put this stuff together? Use that method. If that's what works for you, if that's what makes it easy, quick for you so that you can get back to writing, do that. There is no hard and fast rule for how this works. I'm going to tell you, when I went to the Ignite Your Imagination conference down in Tampa a couple years ago, there was a romance author there named Sharon Hamilton, and she shared with the audience that she does her story Bible through a human being. She has a beta reader who literally puts together a list of characters and a list of events, things that happen. That person is Sharon's story Bible. When Sharon has a question, when Sharon has something going on, she can turn to that person and say, hey, what's this? Kind of like when I was mentioning in the first part of this, in the last section, you turn your story Bible over to your editor with your manuscript so that your editor can make sure things are consistent. Sharon can do that with this person. It's a human. A human is her story Bible. That frightens me because I'm just wired differently. I have control issues and I have trust issues. This is how I am, and I know this about myself. So I have a document on my computer where I put all the stuff in. When I create a new character in my world of Unveiled for one of my short stories, I put that character in the story Bible. I don't always print it out immediately, but at certain times of the year, I will print out a new copy of the story Bible and put it in this 3-ring binder. Okay. Sometimes I just need to print out a new page. That's how I work. That's how it works for me. There is a program called Scrivener, which I'm sure lots of you out there have worked with. That program has an awesome way for writers to build character descriptions and character arcs and character information. You can develop characters in Scrivener just off to the side of your manuscript. Okay. You can build worlds in Scrivener. You can do all of your story Bible creation in Scrivener. You can do that. I will say this to you. I tried it. I didn't like it. Personally, I didn't like it. It made me crazy. I found that I was spending a lot of time playing around, farting around, messing around, building stuff in Scrivener instead of writing. Oh, it was so easy to play around with the building of worlds and critters and creatures and characters. It was so fun to just play around with the tools that Scrivener had instead of writing the story. And I was getting lost in the weeds playing around instead of writing. That's just me. That's just how I was messing with it. So if you find yourself getting lost in that kind of creative part of it, while fun, it was taking me away from writing. And it might take you away from writing too. It might help you get into the writing. So Scrivener might be a way to help you get that kick in the pants, right? It might be really good for you. But Scrivener is one of the methods, one of the tools available out there to authors for building a story Bible. Okay. For me, it's just a freaking Word document. I kid you not. It's a Word document with page breaks for the different sections. My different sections are, and we're going to go over this in part 4 of the presentation, the fun part of the presentation. I've got the gods and mortals of Unveiled. So that's the characters, right? I've got places, I've got recipes, I've got events, and I've got the dragons. Okay. Even though the dragons are characters, they have their own thing. So I've got different page breaks in my Word document where I put the different sections of my story Bible. All right. And it's not just a story Bible, it's a style guide as well. I have tips and information in here for myself and for my editor where I say, okay, Geisa, which is my magic system, Geisa is lowercase. A Geisan, here's how you spell it with the apostrophe, and it's lowercase. I've got notes like that in here as well. Okay. Okay. Now, I want to leave this section open-ended. Okay, I want to put the question to you guys out there. If you've already started building a story Bible, what method or what software, what system are you using? I mean, it could be as low tech as you're writing it down in a notebook. I mean, do you have a spiral notebook where you're keeping a list of your characters? That is valid. That is awesome. I mean, and that is very tactile as well. I mean, how much closer can you get to your characters than touching their story as you're writing it? How wonderful is that? So tell us in the comments below, let's get a conversation going about what system or what software you're using to build your story Bible. I would like to hear it. We would all like to share and learn from that. The third part of this presentation is how to use your story Bible. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that you can turn your story Bible over to your editor when you turn over your manuscript so that your editor can look things up in there and use that to make sure everything is consistent in your narrative. Your editor is not going to pick up every single detail when they're reading and editing for you, right? So they're going to miss some things. But if you've got that story Bible for them, that will assist in them catching some of those little nuances that might slip by, right? So that's one way you can use this story Bible. Another way, if you're writing an anthology or if you're part of a larger anthology with other authors, the publisher or the editor of that anthology might provide a story guide or guidelines or a style guide or a story Bible to each of the writers in that anthology. There is a gentleman who comes to Imaginarium each year. He's been a spotlighted guest there a couple of times. His name is Demetrius Witherspoon, and I wrote down so I would get it right. He is the creator of the Submerge universe, and this is a huge universe he has put together. It has comic books, it has a couple of movies now, and of course books. He has created this universe, this network of characters and stories, cool stuff that all goes into this world, right? For that world, other authors participate. Other creators can be involved in that. Well, those other creators need to know what they're getting into. They need to know the rules. Like, what are they allowed to do with certain characters? What do certain characters bring to the table? What I want to say superhero strengths do certain characters have? Okay, the authors who participate, the writers and the creators who participate in that universe need to know what are the guidelines, what are the rules, what are they allowed to do and not allowed to do with characters, with magics, with settings, with superhero strengths. Okay, there needs to be a story Bible, a universe Bible for that universe. Last year in 2024, early 2024, Titan Books released a series called the Heroic Legends series. And in that series, they had a set of short stories in the Robert E. Howard line, like characters from Robert E. Howard were highlighted in those short stories. I'm not saying that very well, but the point is, authors were invited to write stories in the Robert E. Howard canon, okay? There was not, I asked Stephen Shrewsbury, he wrote one of the stories. He wrote Red Waves of Slaughter with the Bran MacMorn character. I asked him, okay, were you given guidelines? Were you given a story Bible for those stories, for that world? Or did Titan Books expect you all to just know the world? Did they just expect you to be so immersed in REH lore that you would just know what you were doing? And basically, the editors of that series just expected the authors to know what they were doing. They expected the authors to be so immersed in REH lore that they would know the characters. They would know what they were allowed to do and not allowed to do. That's sort of an understanding that authors have of the Robert E. Howard characters. Not all of us have characters that are that well known. For example, if I were to ask a bunch of writers out there in the world to write short stories based in my Unveiled series, okay, write short stories in my world of Unveiled, they would need guidance. Not everybody out there has read stories by Sandy Linder. Not everybody out there knows all of the characters in the Choices series. Okay, I'm aware of this. So I would need to give guidance. I would need to say, okay, here's the story Bible. Here's the character descriptions and what has happened in the past for these particular characters. Here's the Gesa, the magic system. Here's how these things work. Okay, you tracking with me here? So I would need to give guidance and a story Bible to authors to participate in my world. For Robert E. Howard, we know Conan, we know Bran McMorn. Whether you're working in your own world or in another author's world, that will dictate how you're using that story Bible, whether you're sharing it with others, whether others are sharing theirs with you. Okay, that's going to dictate how to use the story Bible. I guess I also want to say it's how you use your story Bible will also be dictated by what you're writing. If you're writing a short story, you may only need little pieces of your story Bible. You may not need to access the whole, 3-ring binder that I just showed you. You may not need to access the entire document that you've built, the entire Scrivener document that you've saved. You may not need that whole thing, all that information to write a short story about a character, 2 characters doing one little thing in one little part of your history. Or when we go into marathon writing, which is how this whole story Bible presentation began. If you're going into like a marathon writing weekend, this is where I like to have my story Bible at my disposal for quick, easy reference. I like to think of it as like Wikipedia for myself, my own personal Wikipedia of my own personal world. Because if you are a sci-fi author or a fantasy author, even a contemporary author who's writing real world stuff, there are elements that you have changed. There are things you have made up that you want to be able to check quickly that aren't going to be out there on the internet for you to check quickly. We have all become so spoiled by Google, right? If there's something you don't know, you can just Google it and the answer comes to you instantly. Our brains are atrophying in real time because we don't have to think and remember stuff anymore. We can just Google it. We can just look it up and the answer will be there for us. God forbid we lose the internet, right? We'll all be stupid, wandering aimlessly, lost. But we have this ability now to just Google something, get an answer, look it up on Wikipedia, get an answer quickly. That is your story Bible for you. When you are writing a marathon, writing during a marathon, you do not have time to stop and do word searches through your document to find answers. Like we talked about in the first part of this presentation, you don't have time to stop and reread a chapter to figure out if Bob died of pneumonia, right? You don't have time to do that. But if you have your story Bible at hand, you can do a quick look up of Bob. Here's his characteristics. And oh, look, he died of pneumonia. Okay, that is there. It is quick and easy to find, and you can keep writing for your marathon and keep going and get through it. Yeah, again, it's the quick, easy lookup of information for you. It's the quick and easy reference. Yeah, I wrote down here. It's like your quick internet or Wikipedia search, but for your world. Your story Bible is your world that you can access easily. Now, you want your editor to be able to access it easily as well. If you're sharing it with other authors, other writers in a compendium or in an anthology, in a group, you want them to be able to access it easily as well. So I want you guys, if you've already started using a story Bible or sharing a story Bible or a style guide, share with us in the comments below how you do that. What is the easiest way you have found to share your style guide or your story Bible? Now, like I mentioned to you guys with mine, I've combined these things. My story guide and my style guide and my story Bible are the same thing. When I've mentioned, a character's name and how to spell it and the phonetic sound for it, I've listed out their information, but I've also listed, okay, here are the place, like here's the place they're from. Here's how to spell that. I've listed out the style elements for the character as well as their physical description, that sort of thing. The style is included with my story building in my story Bible. That stuff it's together in there. But when I need to share that with an editor, the Word document is what I will send. And I have no problem sending the Word document to an editor. I'm not concerned about that being stolen or used or anything like that. I'm not concerned about that. I trust the editors that I use, okay? So I'm not worried about that. But you guys share with us in the comments below. Let's get the conversation going. How do you share your style guide? Do you send a PDF? Do you send the Word document? Do you use Scrivener? Do you use another program? And what do you do to share that to make sure that your editor or your beta readers, maybe, I mean, how do you make sure that they are on the same page with you as you're working? Part 4 is the best part, you guys. This is what goes in the story Bible. Guys, I put everything. Everything goes in the story Bible. Every bit, this is the fun part. This is the creative part. This is the part that the author, the writer, the creative inside you should be just thrilled about. Okay, this is where we put all the goodies, all the bits and pieces that you don't want to forget, all the bits and pieces that make up the story, that make up the world building, that make up the character development, that make up the rivers and the mountains and the streams, and all the good stuff happens here. Okay. First of all, I do have a map in the front of my story Bible, and I put the map in the front of each of the Choices books. Hold on. It's in black and white inside the book. Like if you pick up Choices Meant for Gods, Choices Meant for Kings, or Choices Meant for All, the map is right there in the front. There it is. That is the map of Unveiled. And it is in black and white in the books because putting it in color would be really expensive, right? Okay, but in my story Bible, right here in the very front, I have the map. And I did print out little postcards of it. Sometimes at events, I will give away postcards of the map. So I have it in color. And what I have done, because a majority of the action in the majority of the action in all 3 books really takes place around Cleo Arcana. I blew up the map and I got the Southeast region especially. Okay, right. So there you can see I've got Cleo Arcana, Arcana City. I've got the Valley of Fairshaft. I've got the Arcanan Vale. The Arcanan Vale is where the Arcanan Vale War takes place. Okay, so I've got the main action takes place mainly here. So I've got that blown up big for myself. So when I'm working in the world, I can see where things are happening. I can see the stuff. There it is. For the longest time, I'm just going to share with you all. For the longest time, I had trouble with Lorendell, which is on the South Island here, and Leonardell, which is on the continent just north of it. These two sister cities used to be combined, and then there was an earthquake that split them apart. That history is in my story Bible, but it's on the map. And for the longest time, I would get confused in my brain, and I could not remember which one was to the north and which one was to the south. You guys, I would be typing in my manuscript and be like, wait, is that Leonardell or Lorendell? And I would have to look at the map. There you go. I actually had a sticky note on my desk that said, I think it's Leonardell is to the north, I think, or did I put on there Lorendell is to the south? Anyway, I said which one was to which, and I put it on. Okay, there we go. So there's my map is in my story Bible. What else do you want to put in your story Bible? One of the first things you're going to put in your story Bible is your characters. Of course, you're going to list your characters, but I want you to list more than just, character, name, description. Yeah, Bob has brown hair and brown eyes and he's 6'1". Okay, great. But what else is there about Bob? Who are his parents? Where did he grow up? What street did he grow up on? What's his favorite ice cream? He died of pneumonia in what year? Okay, put that information in his description. Let's get more about Bob than just the physical description in his entry in the story Bible. Okay, we want more about Bob than just a physical description, because when you're working on your manuscript and you're looking up this information about Bob, you want to know what kind of car does he drive, right? And if you look back at your character description and all it has is he's got brown hair and brown eyes, you're going to be mad at yourself because, oh my gosh, so his Lincoln Navigator, was that blue Or was it also brown like his hair and eyes? Put those details in there when you describe him, okay? Okay. Oh, all right. I also want to mention, when you put your characters into your style guide, into your story Bible, list them however it works best for you. You might be thinking, well, Sandy, I'm going to put them in alphabetical order. Okay, perfect, perfect. Bob, if Bob Smith is his name, then maybe you put him under the B's for Bob. Maybe you put him under the S's for Smith. Okay, perfect. Go for it. Maybe Bob Smith is your main character, in which case you don't want to kill him off with pneumonia in chapter 2, right? Okay. But if he is your main character, maybe you want to list him first as the very first character in your style guide. Great, do that. However it works for your brain, do it that way, okay? In my style guide, I have the gods and mortals of Unveiled are the characters, right? That's the characters section. I list 7 of the main important characters first. I've got those 7 listed out first. Then I have a break and I start listing all the other characters in alphabetical order by first name, because not every character has a last name. Not every character needs a last name. Not every character needs their ancestry and lineage and where they were born listed. Not every character needs that in this series. You guys, okay, I'm going to show you. This is a 3-book trilogy. This is the first book. It's pretty hefty, right? It's a weapon. Not every one of these characters needs that kind of depth and information to them. Not every one of these characters has that kind of depth and information to them. Some of these characters I know so well that I don't need to write it all out. Anyway, I do have at the back of each book, I have the cast of characters listed for the reader. And this is also for my own edification as I'm going through the books, but the cast of characters are listed much the same way they're listed in the style guide, with some changes so that I don't give away any spoilers and plot points. Okay, so I have the main characters. There's Amanda Charisse, there's Rason, her wizard, there's Master Rothan, there's Jamieson Drake, there's Gillette, there's Nigel Timon. Okay, those are our main characters that we need to know about. They're listed first. Then supporting characters in alphabetical order by first name, which is exactly the way it happens in the style guide. Okay, we have Abigail, Brendan, Colm, Darnwell III, Desireen. These characters are listed that way in each of the books. Okay, that happens in the style guide too. All right, check in with me here. That's how it works for my brain. However it works for your brain, do that. Shall I read you one? I'm going to give you one example. I swear to God, I'm not going to read you everything that's in this style guide. You guys will get bored. Just because I love it doesn't mean you do. But let me read you one. Inara Dane of Leoburg is the woman who started it all. So the very first character that I've got listed in my style guide isn't even my main character, but she's the most important character to list. She is the original ancestor of Amanda Charisse Deirdre. Inara possessed the gift of prophecy, which means she experienced visions of what was likely to happen to her descendants, including Amanda Charisse. Inara and her dearest friend, Kelthauer, were the first female Gason in recorded history. Because they possessed this gift that had only been seen in men, they were somewhat feared. Circa 200, Inara was married off to the horrible warlord Dagon, who passed her around to his warriors, resulting in the amazing child Eowyn. Okay, a little bit of history. We've got some dates in there. There's just information packed into that character description of Inara Dane. So when I go back to this style guide and I'm looking up information about Inara, right there, very first one, and I've got all the information. The warlord Dagon, there he is. He's listed. I know who it was that she got married to. Right there, right there. I don't have to guess. I don't have to wonder. I don't have to go looking for Dagon somewhere else. There he is. Okay. Your results may vary, but that's how I do it. Okay, what else goes in the story Bible? I'm putting Objects and clues. If you're a crime writer or a mystery writer, get your story Bible out and make sure that little objects that you have left around the crime scene, or objects that your investigator noticed in someone's house, those objects, go ahead and list them in your story Bible. Why not? They might come back later, they might not. But if you've got them in your story Bible, you can use them, you can remember them, you can be consistent. The color, the shape, the heft of them can be consistent. Clues, oh yeah, clues, red herrings, all of it. Put it in there. Places and scenes. Okay, places and scenes. As a fantasy author, I have places and scenes in my story Bible. Let me turn to that page for you. I labeled it establishments, places, villages of importance. Okay, and the very first one is Arcana. Of course. Arcana, the city located about 2 hours by foot north of Hleo Arcana, was situated just beyond the foothills of the Frailville Mountains, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and I go through how it bolstered the economy, blah, 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 blah. The whole thing. I've got it all listed out there. Timelines and dates and events. Put timelines in your story Bible. You guys, I cannot tell you, because my fantasy series is epic fantasy and I have long-lived characters. I mean, my wizard is over 600 years old, okay? Because I have long-lived characters, I need to know when things happened. I need to remember when things happen. I need to remember birth dates. I need to remember when Mia came to Razon and gave him his task, okay? I need to remember these things. I need to know these things. And if you guys have been on this channel for any length of time, you know numbers are not my strong suit. I can screw up a number in an instant. So I need to have this written down. I need to have it in my story Bible. I need to be able to go to Razon's name in this story Bible and look up his exact date of birth, the exact date that Mia came to him and gave him his task. I need to be able to look that stuff up, you guys, because I will screw it up if I'm just doing it from memory. I'll get it wrong. I know I will. Okay. You may have no trouble at all with dates. But if you have it in your story Bible, if you have it in your style guide, you and your editor will be on the same page. You and any other author that you write with in the future will be on the same page. Okay? Okay. What else? World building. Of course, the world building is in the story Bible. It just is. The world building is laced throughout everything that's happening in your story Bible and your style guide. It's just happening in there. Okay? Let me give you an example. Okay, this, I don't know if you can see that without the glare. Do you see the craziness of that? That's my handwriting and weird drawings and illustrations. I am not an artist, okay? So the illustration is crazy weird. That, my friends, is the monetary system in my world. That is a copper blend that you're looking at in that little circle there, and how many flakes of gold are needed with the copper to make up a copper blend. Okay, that's what that is. That is world building. The monetary system that goes into world building is in my style guide and story Bible. You can do the same. Even if you're working in the real world, even if you're writing a contemporary crime novel, even if you're writing a contemporary romance, you are world building when you start writing. Put your world building elements into your story Bible and you will be thankful later. All right, what did I write here? I said, we're all world builders, even if you're writing a documentary or a biography. I mean, do you need to keep track of the street someone grew up on? Put it in your story Bible so it's there and you don't have to look it up somewhere else some other time. It's there. You've got it written down. You know what it is. It's in your personal Wikipedia then. When you're building your story Bible, you're helping yourself track everything. This whole goal is to help yourself keep track of all the bits and pieces. You're tracking your characters. You're tracking your places. You're tracking your religion and your celebrations. You're tracking your government. You're tracking your monetary system and the economy. You're tracking your legends and your stories. You guys, I've got to tell you, I've got a couple of like legends and stories and anecdotes that my characters tell in the Choices Meant for God's book, because those play a part in they play a part in their society. There's a gal named Tiatha who she lived a long time ago. Remember, I mentioned that Leonardell and Laurendell society that split apart in that earthquake. They split apart in that earthquake because there was civil unrest. The society was at war with one another, and Tiatha was the princess who was she was saved, and she was taken to that society, and the society was mad because she had been a slave girl, and they didn't want a slave girl to be married to their king. I mean, there's a whole legend behind it, right? And then there's the story of Catherine Fair, the goddess who came to that society and split the place apart with that earthquake. I really like the legends I made up for this world. Okay, so there are things like that. Those legends and stories go in your story Bible. Because if you spell them out in your story Bible, it's like now they're real, now they're searchable, now they're part of that Wikipedia that is your world, your own personal Wikipedia. They're part of it now. Okay? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the whole point of having that story Bible, not just fun, not just creativity, not just tracking stuff, the whole point is to make it easier on yourself so that when you are doing your writing and you come up to something and you're like, wait, is that what happened to Tiatha? Was her prince named Kiev? You can go back to it and go, oh, yes, it was Kiev, and keep writing. You don't have to search and struggle and try to do a keyword search in some other part of your document and then get distracted. You can stay right there on that page, right there in that paragraph. Keep your cursor right where it is. But look something up in your story Bible and then come right back to it and keep writing. Keep going. Not be interrupted. Don't get stuck with writer's block or some other interruption. Keep going. No hiccups. Keep writing. Ladies and gentlemen, thumbs up for the story Bible. I want you to tell me in the comment field below, have you already started structuring your story Bible for the stories you are working on? Is this something you're planning to do in the future? What system are you using? How do you already use it? How do you already share it? Tell me, tell me, tell me. Share with one another in the comments below. Get a conversation going. Make this fun. You guys, this is creative. This is the fun part of writing. Being creative, building the good stuff, making all the stories come together and happen. Thumbs up for all the creativity and fun stuff and good things happening. Thank you so much for tuning in.